Welcome back to American Nostalgia Garage. Today, we're putting an engine in this Blazer. And I'm afraid of heights, so let me get down. If you watched our last video was actually putting the engine together for this thing, and it's finally ready for us to tear that old diesel tractor engine, which has no business being in there, throwing in a 6-liter LS LQ4 ABC 123. Dance with me. Can't you see? I'm gonna stop now because it's, you know. Anyway, we got to get the old engine out, which is a Massey Ferguson tractor engine or Kubota tractor engine or something that's in there, and we got to get it out. So let's get started. Alright, so here it is in all its non-glory. Honestly, this thing's probably not bad. I'm not real mad at it. It doesn't run. It is really hurt. But I'm going to have to get a little creative getting it out of there because I don't really know anything about this, and it's got like an adapter plate back there. So anyway, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath, probably do torque converter and bell housing bolts. That way everything that's underneath is hopefully finished. And then what I'll do is I'll take these big, huge tires off. Relax, Jeep guys. I know, they're not that big. But they're, you know, they're big for car guys like myself. These are 32s anyway. We'll take those off. I'll lay it down on the spindles and whatnot so I can get this thing down because vertically challenged. So anyway, I can't reach up in this thing, so if I can get it on the floor, that might help. Also, kind of a cheat code here. I already took a lot of stuff apart because I worked on this once. Hopefully you guys watched that video. If you didn't, go back and watch it. It's frustrating, to say the least. So let's get this thing out of here and restore our 87 Blazer back to its former glory. So when you start a project like this, instead of having your Wheaties to get you ready for the morning, start yourself with a tetanus shot. Because these old trucks, they're going to be pretty rotten. You're going to end up eating plenty of flakes, so you won't need your breakfast. And you're probably going to end up with some sort of viral infection that you didn't have before. Also, good idea to sweep the floor when you're going to be on the creeper. Didn't do that either. So that I can roll around without getting caught on this little rock right here. Of course, these needed to be torqued down to 5,000 foot-pounds by the previous owner. If ever you guys think you're going to half finish a project and then sell it to somebody, make sure that every one of the bolts is torqued down to 9,000 foot-pounds. So that way, the next guy that pulls the truck apart hates it. If you guys are doing this stuff, get yourself an extension that's this long. That way, you can take off your bell housing bolts from a different zip code. Nothing. Luckily, there's not that many things that need to come off. Throttle, bracket, cable thing. Looks like somebody made something out of a lawnmower blade. I like the ingenuity. Then we have a line to the turbo over there. It's just an oil feed line. Some butchered wire back there. Maybe a ground or something. And then some coolant hoses. So get all that disconnected and then we'll pull this thing out. Alright, I drained basically all the fluids, I want to say into a bucket, but you know how that goes. Of course, I missed a bucket and now I'm going to have to lay in everything, which is why I did all the underneath stuff first. Anyway, all the top side stuff should be finished and the bottom side stuff should be finished too. So basically at this point, got the old cherry picker out, should be able to snatch this whole thing out of there. If things look a little different, it's because I took the hat off this thing. Had a feeling I was going to have to do it, but as it turns out, my engine hoist decided to become one with the ground, which makes it really hard to pull this thing out when you need to, so I'm going to have to kind of swivel it. But anyway, I need the height anyway, so I took the hood off. But before I took the hood off, I made a mark around where the hood was, so I know where to put it back. Oh, hey, thanks for stopping by. All right, well, I don't plan on wearing my truck as a belt for forever. I'd like to put that 6-liter in there. So I got to get some other stuff cleared up, get some of the stuff that doesn't belong here out. I'm going to pressure wash the frame while I have an opportunity. Might spray some old rebuild in a can in black. And then I got to get our LS out of the garage. I've got to paint that because that's got to be painted still. And before I do that, I've got to clean some of it. And then I can go Christmas shopping in the old truck for parts I already bought. I'll pull out what we got in the boxes, see what we need in order to complete this engine swap, and then we'll go from there. Time out. We're gonna play a game. Think of the sketchiest thing that you've done on your hot rod. And I don't mean sketchy like, you know, allegedly driving sketchy on the road. I mean, think of the sketchiest thing you've butchered into your hot rod and said, boy, I hope that works. Now think of the sketchiest thing you've done with your wiring. If there's one thing I don't really like doing sketchy stuff with, it's wiring. Which is weird because I'll drive a car with 3 wheels on it, but for some reason I won't drive a car that has like a popped fuse. Very odd. Anyway, let's play a game of how many splices for one wire. This truck had an air-to-water intercooler for the little diesel turbo. I was told the guy that did this was an engineer. Well, nothing against engineers, but you guys that work on cars, you know what I mean. Engineers. Just kidding, we love engineers. However, anyway, this specific guy, engineer, decided to hook up all this wiring to set up the water pump for that thing. Let's take a look at it. Here is the ground terminal. We'll start with that. 1 splice. Here's another splice just to the same wire. Here's, let's call that 2 because it's somebody basically twisting and just setting it up. Goes to the plug. Then we have the other side of the plug. Then we have 1 splice, which actually I believe is 2 because there's a splice. It looks like there's 2 in there. Then 4 inches later, we decided to change to yellow and then also do a very bad connection here. So decided maybe just change it to orange. Yellow's no good. Yellow doesn't work for these wires. So we switched to orange, where we then later on, I don't know if you can see it, we scotch locked in another sensor whatever, and that goes there. And then also there's another right there where my finger is, you can see it, another butt connector. So if you were counting, that's 8 splices to run this pigtail, to run this one thing. We don't want to do that. So I've got to go through some of this wiring. I'll probably just wait till the engine's in so that it's really hard to get to. Right now, I'm trying to prep this engine bay for the engine. And then we'll fight the rest of the stuff after, right? All right, we lost our audio here, so I'm just going to narrate. If you saw me with a can of white spray paint, you're not nuts. I just ended up painting it black because the white didn't come out good. Also, I'm just basically putting on our motor mounts here. And what I'm actually explaining here is that I left the motor mounts loose so they could slide back and forth, because in the car, what's going to basically decide where the engine is going to rest is how it mounts to the transmission. The bell housing itself is not going to move, so wherever the bell housing lands, the engine is going to get bolted to that, and that's going to decide where the engine is going to land. So I left these engine mounts loose so that basically once it's bolted to the bell housing, that I could slide those mounts to wherever I need them to be, and then I can get it saddled up. Now what you're seeing is the crank adapter for the torque converter and the flex plate, which is LS to 700 R4. Here I'm trying to show you that there's an offset to it. Here we're filling our Boss Hog torque converter with a quart of ATF. And here I'm showing you that I used pretty much Type F on everything in my garage. Doesn't have a friction modifier in it, so it's good. Here I'm installing the torque converter. You saw me just lubing up the snout to make sure that it slides in nicely. When you install these things, you want to see them kind of click twice. You'll see me get excited here when it clicks in. So the first one's kind of easy, and now is the second one there. And the second one is where it engages the pump. That's super important. Now that it's in, the torque converter itself has a limited amount of pull out from the pump without actually getting pulled all the way out of the pump. Here I'm showing you the flex plate and showing you that the offset has to be facing the transmission, and now I'm just marking off all the holes that I'm going to use for the torque converter so I don't get confused. There's two patterns on there. So here is the adapter for the crank. It adapts the LS crank to the 700 R4 converter, and let's get this thing in there now. All right, updates. Bad news, but this is going to be a super valuable tip for anybody that's doing this. If you remember, I left my motor mounts so they could float back and forth. If you notice, see the hole is here on the motor mount, and about an inch and a half to the left is where the slot is for the motor mount. It's like that on both sides. Here's the other side, same thing. So basically the spread of the motor mounts on the frame and the spread of the motor mounts on the engine are different by the tune of about an inch and a half per side. So what I've got to do is the two slopes that the clamshells mount to, I've got to find the height up and down where those motor mounts, the spread of the motor mounts on the frame will match the spread of the motor mounts on the engine. Does that make sense? I've got to wiggle this thing back out. I'm just going to jack it up, get it as high as I can, climb underneath it, because that's the safest thing I could think to do, and then drop it back down, hopefully in the right spot. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a marker and mark where the holes need to be. That way I know for a reference point where I got to move my motor mounts on the frame to. Engine is in. Kind of like where it's sitting. It's sitting good. We don't have any clearance issues, so that's nice. Let me show you underneath. All right, so you can see the motor mount bolt right there does not come through the bracket, so I've got to work on that. Also, torque converter. In reading the instructions, they want you to not pull the torque converter out more than 5/16 of an inch. So in order to figure out whether you can or cannot pull that torque converter out far enough, is I just grab the 5/16 and I can get it in there. It's like almost exactly 5/16. So what we're going to do is each one of these is just going to get just a washer. They don't want you to pull it out more than 5/16. If I pulled it all the way out to the torque converter, just because the 5/16 fit, that would be bigger than 5/16. So I'll just put a washer in between the torque converter on all 3 bolts, and that'll be good. We'll be done here. All right, well, engine is in the engine bay on its own. It's not being held by anything except by itself. What I had to do is, if I mentioned the motor mounts being an issue, what I ended up doing is loosening one side, the mount itself, the clamshell to the frame, getting the through bolt through, and then tightening it back down. So that thing's jammed in there. That'll be a future me problem. Anyway, we got to get this thing dressed up. Headers we won't have till tomorrow, but I could throw our valley cover on. I could probably throw our intake on. Oh, I got to put push rods and rockers in this thing. All right, well, currently the engine lift plate is playing hot dog bun with my body. I'm not gonna describe that any further. Just use your imagination. Anyway, got to throw these push rods in. If you watch the engine build video, you understand why these are in my hand and not in the engine. And no, it's not because they're a special order. It's just because I'm disorganized and didn't order them. But anyway, now I got them. Got to throw them in because I want this thing to actually run. And in order to run, you need these. All right, I got the valley cover on, and I got the Steamport crossover. You know what, though? I can't wait any longer. We got to throw this thing on. All right, in typical American Nostalgia Garage fashion, we bought the cheapest item we could right off of Amazon. So there's a little assembly that's required, which I don't mind. You know, most things require you putting them together. What I will say is that this specific Amazon special, because it's one of those cheap Chinese knockoffs, the TPS, the bolts go in 1/2 millimeter and snap right off, or strip right out. So just, you know, keep that in mind. Got to put the idle air control valve in. Hopefully we have the same issue with the bolts on that. So I made soup out of it, of course. Also got to put some vacuum fittings on the bottom of the manifold. Comes with fuel rails, which is pretty cool. Don't know if I'll be able to use them, but it comes with them. All right, we're going to throw our manifold on. So I'm going to clean out some of these leaves and stuff. It's been sitting outside. Pro tip, don't forget to take these out, because it ain't going to run very good with all the intake runners all clogged up, you know? Let's get a little soapy water. Soapy water helps the gaskets slide without tearing. So, got this thing loaded up with our seals. I got some vacuum ports on the bottom. I'm gonna actually have to take this off, but I can't help myself. It's gotta go on. Boy, does that look good. Uchi Wawa, which is a technical term for that looks rather nice. Boy, does this manifold look handsome on top of this engine here. I am really happy with that. Basically all that's left is some headers, which we're not getting until tomorrow, I think. Maybe a water pump. Probably wait on all the other accessories for later. Oh, gotta get an oil cap too. Put that on the list. Also, just a side note, if you do buy one of these on Amazon and you sort by cheapest, you'll probably end up with this one, like I did, because that's how I shop. And what I will tell you is it is drilled for 87 bazillion holes, but the LS manifold only, I think, takes 10, so you have to just make sure you don't drive yourself nuts by trying to screw a bolt in a hole that doesn't have threads. Alright guys, new day. Before we get started with work today, I want to make 2 little announcements. This video is going to come out on Memorial Day weekend, so I'd like everybody to take an opportunity to do something we really should be doing every day of our lives, is thank a veteran. If it wasn't for our United States military and law enforcement, we wouldn't have any of the freedoms we have today. So I'd like to thank our all of our service members in the United States military. So, also, I don't know what you see when you look at this, but I see a dome of despair, a circle of insanity. What it actually is a torque converter. And it basically is a Rubik's Cube, even though it's shaped like a circle. Okay, come here. You can be on the video. And the reason that I say that is because there is so much science put into these little things, sort of like these little things, that you can easily either destroy a transmission or basically have a car that you worked on really hard not run right. I was super confused about this because there's a lot that goes into them, especially with different combos. So I actually called ACC Performance, and I got myself a Boss Hog torque converter, which you guys saw me install in the video. The reason I'm stopping here to talk about something I already installed is because I just want to mention they are not supporting this channel at all. I paid full price for all my goods, but it's invaluable when you call somebody and you get excellent service. I ultimately ended up getting a torque converter spec'd out by Nelson over at ACC, and Nelson and his wife were super helpful, actually. They both took the time to go through my setup and basically figure out a torque converter that would work. So I was so happy with the service that I was provided that I actually made sure to call back after I made the purchase to, one, let them know that I did make the purchase, and two, to say thank you for their help. And what do you know? They basically thanked me. Nelson decided to send me a couple t-shirts, which he doesn't need to do at all because I'm just a regular customer just like everybody else. I just wanted to mention that because in today's day and age, it seems like you can never get good help. Nobody really cares. And, you know, when you get somebody who takes the time to help you out, that's pretty cool. So, shout out to ACC and Boss Hog torque converters. Anyway, let's get back to work. All right, I got some Schoenfield headers for this thing. Pulled the passenger side out. I'm getting the feeling that these are going to be like slide them from the inside or the bottom type headers. All right, and here's the passenger side, just slid sort of into place. I got to be honest, I'm not super thrilled with the way they look out of the box. So let's see, I got an exhaust pipe down there that might be in our way. I might have to take that off before I can continue here. So let me see if I can slide the driver's side in, and then I'll give you an update. All right, so the passenger side header, there's an ear on the transmission that needs to be cut off. Pretty much standard with headers for the most part. The driver's side header I have kind of mocked into place. I don't think we're going to have an issue with the ear on the transmission, although it's not all the way up onto the engine yet. The passenger side I'm almost positive it's going to touch, so we're going to cut that off and see if we can get it in. I don't know if I look like I've been having fun or not, but I haven't been. Those were a toughie. They weren't that bad. I'm just being a crybaby. So the ear's cut off, and then the passenger side I also had to remove. There's a long bar that goes from one of the bell housing bolts back to the transfer case. That's like a support rod. That had to come off in order to get these headers on. But that's on. Driver side, no modifications. Who would have thought? I would have thought this would have been the issue. But anyway, that slid right in. So headers are on. You guys ever buy a new project car and you just start tearing into it and getting work done, and you just start stumbling upon just weird stuff that the previous owner like put in the car or installed or had laying around? No? Oh, me neither. Also, side note, I don't know what it is. The jasmine scented little trees, it's best scent ever. Delightful. It's definitely better than the sweaty foot smell that was in here before. All right, got to throw a water pump on it, and I got the truck water pump, and that's because it's a truck. And somebody just got real creative and printed out an AC Delco sticker and just slapped it on there. But I don't know what they were thinking because I bought the cheapest one. I'm gonna throw some gaskets on there, and I'm gonna get this thing mounted on the block. Alright guys, well there you have it. A lot of work, but a big payoff because a 6-liter in a K5 Blazer. So, next time you see this thing, we are throwing a fuel system on it, some fueling, sensors, injectors, and a computer. So you have to stay tuned if you want to see us install a Holley Terminator X on this thing. Anyway, as always, thank you guys for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, American Nostalgia Garage, out.